Let us look at now the concept of insurance and its evolution. We have seen earlier by taking some precautionary measures, we can minimize risk, we can reduce risk. Either we can reduce the impact of a risk or we can reduce the probability of its occurrence. However, in spite of best precautions, best practices, certain risks cannot be avoided or eliminated altogether. However, these risks can be transferred to insurers and others through the mechanism of insurance and other measures. How does this mechanism of insurance work? Let us first look at why does somebody need insurance. The left side portion of this slide tells you there are physical environments, social environments, political environments, operational things, cognitive risk, which contribute to or exposes the assets to physical loss, economic loss, social, political risk and operational losses. These losses get caused by perils and they lead to or result into requirement of capital for carrying out repairs of damaged machinery, damaged houses, damaged buildings or effecting replacements. How do you put in this capital? Where does this capital come from? It has to either come from your resource, that means somebody has kept aside a particular amount of money to take care of losses as and when they take place. That is not always an easy solution. Other option is to create these funds, get these funds by borrowing from banks or other institutes. Both these options are not economically always viable. So, insurance becomes the most viable solution whereby somebody pays a small amount of premium and remains protected. The insurance company promises him to compensate in the event of an accidental loss or damage. We will see how this mechanism works in detail further. Let us see how insurance evolved. More than 5,000 years back, Chinese traders distributed loss of cargo of one ship among other ships. Say, what was the practice here? There was no written agreements. But there are people involved in carrying cargo by ships. If one ship meets with an accident or they meet with some marine perils, like say the pirates or other marine perils, that particular ship's loss was shared by other ships who were undertaking voyages. The Babylonian traders used the first written code for protection against loss of cargo. The first fire insurance company in London was the Fire Office, and all of us have heard of Lloyd's. It started with a coffee house, people sitting together and then trying to protect some marine adventures. History of insurance in India. It is just chronological that the Oriental Life Insurance first started in 1818, followed by Madras Equitable in 29, Triton Insurance, the first life insurer in 1850, Bombay Mutual in 1870, the Oriental Fire and General in 1874 in Mumbai, 1896 Bharat Insurance in Delhi, Empire of India in Mumbai in 1897. Though this is history, this is just to bring to your notice that the concept was gaining popularity and it became very predominantly required element or a important element of economy as the business and trade grew slowly. The huge amounts of funds are involved in this business of insurance, and that is where the government has to make sure that these funds get properly controlled. There is discipline in dealing with these funds. So 1938 was the first Insurance Act. 1956 saw the formation of Life Insurance Corporation of India, that is LIC Act of 1956. Then came JIBNA, General Insurance Business Nationalization Act in 1972, and General Insurance Corporation, GIC, was formed as a holding company with 4 subsidiary companies: the National Insurance Company, the New India Assurance Company, the Oriental Fire and General Insurance Company, and the United India Fire and General Insurance Company as its 4 subsidiary companies for transaction of non-life insurance business. That means at this point of time, Life Insurance Corporation was the only entity conducting life insurance business in India. The 4 subsidiaries of GIC were conducting non-life insurance. In 1999 saw the introduction of IRDA Act and establishment of IRDA, and in the year 2000 the insurance sector opened up for private players with the restriction on foreign investment in the joint venture to 26%. Today you will see a number of private insurers in both life and non-life sectors. Non-life is also known as general, all of us are aware of that. There are a few joint ventures where the foreign partners are reputed international insurance, insurance companies. As far as a registered Indian insurance reinsurance company is concerned, GIC is the only one so far. It is now renamed as GIC Re, and the 4 subsidiary companies have been delinked from GIC. So today, GIC, the 4 subsidiaries and LIC continue to be the government-owned companies, and there are many number of other companies, both in the life and non-life sector, doing the private companies. There is one more company called as ECGC, Export Credit Guarantee Corporation. They provide protection to exporters against identified risks such as importers' payment default, currency appreciation, change in economic policy, and the like, whereby contract frustration. The exporter from India does not get his money. What is the importance of insurance to trade and industry? We have seen that insurance provides protection, or it provides capital for repairs, replacements in the event of accidental losses, damage. And availability of this capital through insurance provides steadiness and stability to trade and business. It increases the risk-taking ability of business. Needless to say again, provides protection against losses. And non-life insurance is closely linked to international trade and industry by way of variety of products in the marine cargo, marine hull and those areas. What is the concept and mechanism of insurance? A large number of people who are exposed to similar risks make contributions to a common fund which is called pool, out of which accidental losses suffered by a few unfortunate ones are made good. By this method, the risk is spread among the community and the likely big impact on one is reduced to smaller manageable impacts on all people who are exposed to similar risk, and this small manageable impact is the premium. Let us see this in a little more detail. How does this work? Concept of pooling. The summary: people exposed to similar risk are brought together. Insurance company acts as an intermediary and they administer the pool. Mutual consent among pool members to share loss. Level of compensation to put back the affected person in the same position he occupied immediately before the occurrence of the loss or damage. Let us take a practical example of, say, a few cars in a city. Say total number of cars are 500. Value of each car is, say, 10,000 rupees. By the trend in the market, statistical data available shows that 5 cars get total lost in a year. That means in a year, if 5 cars have to be total loss, the total amount of loss expected is 10,000 into 5 is 50,000 rupees. Now all these 500 people who own the car, they are not aware with whose car will meet with a total loss. But out of 500, 5 may be facing such a calamity is a certainty. So all 500 of them are willing to contribute together and share this 50,000 rupees. Now when all these 500 share the loss of 50,000, share of each one of them becomes only 100 rupees. And that is the pure premium for the insurance company. Now when we say pure premium, 100 rupees is taken from the people who contribute to the pool and given to the people who suffer loss among the pool members. In practice, the insurance company also has some expenses on their administration, servicing, loss settlement. So those areas, some loadings get added to this, but just to understand the concept, how the insurance mechanism works, let us look at one more example of fire. Say there are 1,000 houses and value of each house is, say, 10,000 rupees. It is known that 10 houses get totally lost or totally damaged, need replacement, total replacement. So total expected loss is 10,000 into 10 is 1 lakh rupees. These 1 lakh rupees are shared by 1,000 house owners. So share of each one of them is rupees 100. This is the pure premium for each house owner. It is like this. If you see on the left one, large number of buildings, large number of house owners pay small amount of premium. This premium comes to the insurance company. They administer this premium or the pool of premium and they pay to the very few, which you see on the right side on fire. There may be 3, 4, 5 or whatever number. So large amounts of claims paid to the few who are affected. Now you will find in practice that it is not only houses or it is not only cars, but the insurance companies insure a large variety of assets. And all these assets together, insurance of all these assets together gives an automatic spread whereby the chances of the numbers who get affected gets reduced. It's a law of large numbers operates here. Now how does the insurance company decide the premium? Say for fire insurance, what is the type of building? Construction of building. Say if one building is constructed only of wooden structure and the other is constructed of concrete, obviously the exposure to meet with a loss of by fire is much more for a wooden building than for a concrete building. What is the occupancy? What is the activity being done in this building? If somebody is manufacturing wax candles and somebody is only sticking close, the exposures are different. Which area it is located, the location of the building is another important factor. Then insurance company will try to understand, is it very near to the sea, very near to the river or a bed of water? How far is the nearest fire brigade? What is the condition of the roads? Are there any railway crossings when fire engines have to come? Number of things will go into that. And importantly, what are the types of goods stored in these premises? Are they hazardous goods? That means, are they more susceptible to catching fire, flammables, more combustibles? And where individuals go for health insurance or life insurance, the age of that individual, sex, what is the profession, what are the habits? A smoker and a non-smoker, if we compare them, a non-smoker is definitely a better risk, that less chances of getting any diseases. What is the health condition? What are the family history of any particular diseases like relating to heart, relating to diabetes and similar things. These are just indicative examples. What are the benefits of insurance? Now remember, such benefits will come not only to individuals but also to the society as a whole, and in turn to the economy. For individuals, protection from such uncertainties of different perils operating. It provides peace of mind by giving an assurance that yes, I will get a compensation from the insurance policy. Had he not taken insurance, he had to keep a good amount of capital as reserve for meeting losses. By taking insurance, paying a small amount of premium, practically a big chunk of the capital is available for using for the business or the trade. Now these are the major benefits for a society. It provides stability to the trade and industry. When we say stability to trade and industry, it automatically generates employments. It develops a lot of infrastructure for the benefit of people, for facilitating production faster way, better quality, less cost. Social and economic benefits definitely come to the society. And the savings and investments, practically when there is more capital available, all these things contribute to economic growth. How are insurance or types of insurances classified? We have heard life and non-life. Non-life is also called general. Life, as the word goes, deals with human life, whereas the non-life insurance deals with property, persons, profits and liability. Some of us call this as 3 P's and 1 L. In old days we called them as 3 M's and 1 L: main, material, money and liability. The Insurance Act 38 classifies non-life insurance in 3 classes: fire, marine, and the rest of the things which is written by the insurance, non-life insurance companies was clubbed as miscellaneous. With the developments of economy, liberalization and globalization taking place, a big number of certain types of insurances like say engineering insurance, health insurance, they are growing very rapidly in size, and now slowly these classifications will require to have a second look. But as of today, fire, marine, miscellaneous, these are the major classes. Let us now look at a few questions that we have received. The first question, for the benefit of all, I will read out loud. If the premium rates are decided on the basis of region, location, etc., then does the premium collected participate in claim payment to other areas where risk occurred more than expected? Okay. To put it simply, the question is, if we collect premium from the state of Maharashtra, will that premium be used to pay losses in other regions? Yes, what we are doing, we are not going by this location. What is the importance of location and region is exposures to particular risk like fire, natural perils. Say if we talk of coastal Andhra, the exposure to windstorms is little larger than those in Madhya Pradesh. If we talk of floods, those near the river are more exposed to floods than where there is no river. Now this is where that particular region gets premium on those risks. But we are getting a spread of risk across the entire city or entire country, whereby the premium burden on others gets reduced. This is the premium collected from the country is used and not the premium collected in a region paid only for losses in that particular region. No. The second question is to take examples of cars. When there are so many models and manufacturers, say in plains, non-hilly areas, what goes to take decision of premium without any history of data? Then in the absence of data, what is the basis on which an insurance company decides on the premium? Okay, now you have rightly said, this is a question by Mr. Subbarao Venkata Palaparthi. Yes, where there is no data available, but insurance is an economic need for protection. There are actuarial projections, actuarial exercises which tell you as to what should be the premium like. And that is where you will find that today IRDA has made it compulsory for each insurance company to have an actuary on their roll. And these actuaries do the financial analysis of types of events, not only within the data is not available from your place. They try to draw some conclusions from data trends in other areas. Okay, somebody known to me is asking me, how are you? Okay, fine, thanks for asking. Next question is, what is the importance of ECGC? As we have seen, Export Credit and Guarantee Corporation, when one of our, say, Indian entity or Indian company gets an order from a foreign country, now this order is to be fulfilled. He sends the goods from India, and for whatever reason, the importer from the other country does not pay. Or midway, the importer from the other country cancels the contract. He may receive the goods and may not pay by making some arguments, making some excuses. A variety of things can come, and that is where the Indian exporter needs to have a protection, and that is the precise protection being given by ECGC. And as the name suggests, Export Credit Guarantee. I think there is still some questions are coming in, and it may perhaps take time. So what I propose is that after we finish all chapters, maybe we will compile all the questions together and then have an interaction for more effectiveness. Coming back to what we did, we looked at the risk and theory of probability. What are the different terminologies used, like the risk, hazard, certainty, uncertainty, peril, how insurance companies use them in different parlance. And the important area was the risk management process itself. Just to recall that risk identification is also known as anticipation. Next step, the risk measurement, also called as risk assessment or evaluation. The third stage is risk reduction or minimization. Avoid, minimize, eliminate. And the next stage was financing. In old days, people always used to feel that moment insurance is taken, it is the end of the risk management process. That is a misconception, let me say you. Always remember that if somebody takes an insurance policy, very, very wide cover, very exhaustive policy, still there are certain risks which are not insurable, and they will come by way of exclusions in an insurance policy. That becomes the area for looking at those risks, how they will impact the particular business or facility. Then we come to the actual history of insurance, how the insurance mechanism works, that the losses of a few unfortunate among a group are shared by the whole group. The whole group contributes a small amount as premium in a pool. That pool is administered by the insurance company, and insurance company pays losses to those among this group, those very few who meet with losses. The important point to remember here is that the people who meet losses must also be a part of the members of the pool. They should also be members of the pool. The contribution from these pool members will not be used for compensating somebody who is not a member. Now, with this we saw two examples of motor cars and fire, houses on fire, and how does the approach to deciding pure premium goes. As somebody has rightly asked a question, that every time we may not have statistical data available. There are different techniques, actuarial science helps in that. Of course, that is not a part of this particular course of IC 01 principles. But just because the business is new or the requirement is new, the insurance company does not say no to that business. They try to work out the best solution, and over the period of time, when they get experience on this, they may keep on adjusting the premium levels and rates and the types of covers. See, the whole insurance package is always a combination of the cover, the premium and the deductible. Deductible is the amount of loss the insured bears out of each and every loss. Now this whole thing becomes a package. If there is a variation in one of them, like say if the cover is changed, take example in fire insurance. Earthquake insurance is an extension of fire. If the client does not want fire insurance, he will not pay for that premium on earthquake. If the client does not want earthquake insurance along with fire, no premium will be charged to him for earthquake. So that becomes a variation in coverage. One with earthquake cover, one without earthquake cover. Obviously, both of them will be pay different levels of premium. Similarly, there may be, old days there were tariffs. The tariffs is to specify what are the policy wordings, what are the premium rates, what are the different regulations, how to implement these tariffs. Today, the premium rates are de-tariffed for property class of business, and each insurance company uses its own techniques, its own experience, and the profile of risk they are writing in deciding what premiums they charge. Now, once we talk of such huge amounts of money by way of insurance premiums into force, obviously there has to be some legislation which will take care of proper utilization of these funds. And that is where you will find that the Insurance Act 1938 and the IRDA Act of 1999, plus a variety of regulations issued by IRDA, they relate to insurance, reinsurance, plus the other service providers like brokers, agents, loss adjusters, on investments, on premium payment modes. A big set of legislation exists to see that the conduct and development of business runs on healthy lines. So the legislation has its own purpose for achieving effectiveness. Now, when we are looking at the licensure examination, you will come across multiple option questions that obviously all of you must be aware through the Insurance Institute's website and other sources. The best way of preparing for the exams in this fashion would be to prepare your own questions. There are questions, sample questions, model questions given by Insurance Institute or either on the website or along with the textbook. But by readings of the individual chapters, if you prepare your own set of questions, work out multiple options for that. That will be more effective, more confidence building, and this is all online examination. Okay, now with that, just this was a little bit of diversion. Then we talked of classification of the insurance business. The original classification of 1938, which talked of fire, marine and miscellaneous insurance business and life insurance business. The certain areas in miscellaneous class of insurance like engineering insurance, health insurance, they are now growing multifold. And today some people prefer to have classification of people, property, other persons, property, profits and liability. Different types of insurance products will be available in these areas. The word liability always in our parlance talks of legal liability that may arise out of certain acts or doings, wrongdoings of individuals, companies, institutes. What we will see subsequently are the other areas in the balance 7 chapters. And as I said some time back, we'll compile all the question answers of all the chapters together and then go in for properly focused answers. It may also happen that we may receive some questions separately on the Insurance Institute's website, We'll take all of them together as far as the IC 01 principles of insurance are concerned.